Before we get into today's topic, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share it on social media, helps the channel out. Microsoft has spent the past year trying to get people's mindsets right into the new generation, trying to get everyone's trust. Going back to E3 2019, Microsoft talked about ray tracing. They talked about gaming up to 120 frames per second. They talked about gaming at higher refresh rates and higher resolutions more consistently. And then in December, they actually announced the Xbox Series X, almost a year ahead of its release. Showing confidence, showing that they were trying to be bold, make moves, make waves, and they did that. Skip forward to the spec reveal. People had to pick their jaws up off the floor. All this power in that box, it must be a super expensive console. They were fairly open and transparent about the new hardware, feature set, backwards compatibility, all of that. And Microsoft continued to do this throughout 2020, and while things weren't exactly perfect this year for new game announcements and pretty much anything game related, Microsoft has proven once again that they trust their own developers, they believe in the hardware they have, and these new consoles, Microsoft is trying to squash every single piece of FUD out there, and they're doing that. And I'm going to talk about every single one today that they're doing, because Microsoft, again, they want to squash every single piece of fake concern out there, and people are still trying. And well, let's talk about every single reason and how Microsoft is squashing all this concern. Giving gamers the hardware that they want. Now the thing is, if anyone remembers the beginning of this generation, Microsoft learned the very hard way, and almost every single game that was announced for the first few years of this generation was followed by one question: what's the resolution? And almost every game got this, and then every single game was followed by resolution gate. So Microsoft came back with the Xbox One X, this 4K capable console, and to this day is still an excellent console. And to be honest, I love that thing. It's an excellent machine. But Microsoft's been hard at work since 2016 on the Xbox Series X, and the hardware, the efficiency, the speed, the raw power they've gotten into this small console is truly impressive. And it all goes back to the beginning of this current generation, where power was the talking point. Power is something people care about. But the thing is, going into this generation, it's a different thing, because we have things like ray tracing, we're going to have more 60 frames games, and Microsoft knows, because this generation, we didn't have a lot of 60 frames games. In next generation, we will. Some huge open world games will be 60 frames. We're going to have games that go up to 120 frames per second. We already have games that are confirmed to have 4K, 60 FPS and ray tracing, all in one go. And another problem is that at the beginning of this generation, that a lot of developers, third-party developers, didn't have access to SDKs or close to final SDKs, meaning for a long time, a lot of games didn't come over to Xbox. Well, that isn't going to be an issue this time around. Microsoft knows this, and that's going to be a big point going into the new generation, because again, the amount of games that's coming to the Xbox Series consoles over the next few months is ridiculous. From developers all the way around the world, even many Japanese games are coming to next generation Xbox consoles. And it's all about content that can take advantage of the hardware. And going back to the One X, we've seen what developers could get out of that thing. So just think what we're going to see out of this new box. And the thing is, Microsoft's starting out of the gate with this new hardware that's capable of 4K ray tracing and all that stuff. But Xbox fans don't have to put up with the resolution gate stuff. That's why we're seeing all this FUD right now. People talking about heat when it's not an issue. People making things up just to make it a talking point, when in actuality, this holiday, everyone's going to have a good time gaming. And on Xbox, it's going to be a really good time, because, again, the best hardware with the best games in things like faster loading times, quick resume. Microsoft knows this. And also the controller. You know, the Xbox controller is something that's kind of been copied a lot over the years, and the thing is, Microsoft don't have to add a lot of gimmicks to their controller to make it an evolution. They just had to do some fine tuning, and it's an excellent controller. Xbox All Access is something that we've known about for a long time, but the thing is that over the past few years, it's became crystal clear that Microsoft's tried to make it as easy as possible to get your foot into the door when it comes to Xbox. So whether you want a new console or a Game Pass subscription, they're trying to make it as easy as possible and as enticing as ever. And offering these consoles, these next generation consoles, basically interest free, is a good way for people, new people, to jump into these new consoles. Especially with the climate we're in right now, people want these options. And I'll never understand people that tear others down for wanting cheaper products, because this is just a good deal. There was a moment a few years ago where Microsoft made an announcement, and it kind of set up the next 5 years afterwards. And well, here it is.
Last year, the team decided to tackle a feature that has been consistently at the top of your request list. And while we weren't sure it was possible, today I'm pleased to announce Xbox One backward compatibility.
Backwards compatibility is forward thinking. And the thing is, Microsoft's had this backwards compatibility thing in the bag for a while now. A lot of people thought that announcing this in 2015 was just them going to enable people to play some older games, when in actuality, it was more about the future, more so than people realise. Look at everything in the news right now. Microsoft has crystal clear messaging going into a new generation. Your games continue forward with you, as well as your saves and progression, without any issue whatsoever. No issue whatsoever. Also diversifying the catalogue. Backwards compatibility, going back to the OG Xbox, brings forward many different genres of games, some of which we don't even have this generation. And it allows people, to, go back and have some nostalgia. But it also has people to go back and play games they never did before, because this generation, I've visited many games I missed last gen. And I personally like backwards compatibility for that reason. And again, people have libraries. People on PC don't ditch all their games every time a new graphics card comes out. And with this new generation coming forward, we're getting added benefits when it comes to performance and visuals. And it goes without saying, backwards compatibility is a feature. Not a selling point, it's a feature that should be there for everyone. People like to say that Microsoft doesn't have this legacy of games, when in actuality, they continue to support and care about their legacy games more than anyone else. They don't sell you the same game over and over and over again. They don't. They're not charging money for remasters that are only a few years old. No. They're allowing you to bring forward all your games and just saves and DLC and everything, and experience it in a whole new way. You're going to be able to play backwards compatible multiplayer with people that are still on Xbox 360. Really think about that. People say that Microsoft's only about money and that's it. Look at how they treat their back catalogue. Look at how much they actually pay attention to what people say when it comes to BC games. We have a lot of 360 games and, a decent handful of OG Xbox games, but it's proof that the BC team over at Microsoft, they care. And this is going to continue to the next generation, leading to the next generation, because our games will go forward with us, and it's a bigger deal than people realise. Xbox Game Studios has grown a lot over the past few years, and it's clear for everyone to see that Microsoft is trying to get as much content on Xbox Game Pass as possible. But the thing that people have to remember is that Microsoft leans into memes now. They understand it. They're pretty self-aware when it comes to this stuff. So it's no longer going to be the whole Halo Forza Gears thing. Like, they have many studios making RPGs. Many. And they want to diversify their catalogue. And now, more than ever, they have more content in the pipeline than pretty much the past 2 generations combined. Now you have to really think about that, because content is key. And when it comes to Xbox, they want as many different genres covered as possible. Now, Microsoft knows that these games take time. They've admitted this. But in the meantime, there's second-party studios making games that will fill in the gaps, such as Tell Me Why, Flight Simulator 2020, and things like Gears Tactics. These games will still happen in the future, but Microsoft wants to be in total control of essentially all their games coming. So rather than relying on second-party studios that may end up making games for years that might not ever come out, it's about securing content in the best way possible that will result in less cancellations and development issues over time, because again, Microsoft's been burnt this generation on a few different games such as Scalebound and Crackdown, but it's 2020 and we're moving on from that. Microsoft knows that they're leaning into Game Pass, they're leaning into Xbox with all this new content, they're leaning heavily into RPGs. Microsoft wants to take the crown of being the RPG console yet again, and they will do that, and they're already starting to do that. And the thing is, the situation continues to get even better, because while Microsoft has all these different RPGs in the pipeline, all these action adventures, strategy games, new IP, unannounced games by people like Compulsion Games and more, they bought Bethesda. Now, while they do have things like Avowed in the pipeline, they also have many RPGs coming by Bethesda that will only be on Xbox, which you can play on PC and via mobile devices. Microsoft knows that these studios make quality content, and these studios are known to make long games. Not games as a service games, long games that hold your attention for a long amount of time, which keeps you subscribed to Xbox Game Pass, which keeps you on Xbox, and in the ecosystem itself. Because at the end of the day, that's what Microsoft wants. They want you playing in the ecosystem and keeping you there for the long term. And frankly, look at where Microsoft was even in the 360 generation. First party content didn't come that often, and when it did, it was celebrated. But this time, they have enough content coming, possibly for a new game every other month, and that's exciting, especially as an Xbox fan. The Xbox Series S. So much power in such a small box. Now, I've seen a lot of people wonder why would they go with the 2-tier console route, and other than the current economical climate, you have to really think about it. These next generation consoles, and this goes towards the PlayStation as well, like the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, these are beefy consoles that are aimed at 4K. But again, in 2020, not everyone has a 4K television. This Xbox Series S is the Trojan horse, because this tiny little console, coming out at £249 or $299, is the type of box that someone would buy if they only play Call of Duty, only play Fortnite, or some of these people that play, or I should say one of the millions of people that only play one or few games a year. This is essentially a Game Pass box. Again, you're going to have ray tracing still, up to 120 frames per second, 1440p gaming, and the thing is, this is a cool little console. And again, not everyone cares about 4K. That's where people have to realise this. It's a good proposition for a good price. And personally, I think it's going to be a cool gift for a lot of people this Christmas. Microsoft is basically trying to squash the concern, and they're in the best place they've ever been. And Xbox fans genuinely have reasons, multiple reasons, many reasons to be excited this time, because 7 years ago, Xbox fans couldn't enjoy the launch, and it's a different situation now. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit like and subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, share it on social media, it helps the channel out. I'm out, I hope everyone has a good day. Peace.